So earlier we saw how we generated a hello world application and verified our installation of Django in our machine. Uh, Now let's try to understand how the Django is actually getting that web page, and let's try to create our own web page instead of the one given by the Django by default. So let's see. First, let's see inside our project folder. So my site was our project folder, and inside this, let me zoom in a bit. So my site was this project folder, and inside this we had this manage.py file which we used to control the whole Django. We give commands to this manage.py file after Python 3 manage.py file. Then we give the command and it executes the commands there. Other, we have this my site folder and there's this one hello world folder. We know this hello world is the application which we created inside the Django, and this my site was a folder which was already created with when we created the project. So let's see what is inside this my site folder. So inside this my site folder, we have this urls.py file, wsgi.py file, settings.py file, asgi.py file. We will not be using this WSGI and this ASGI and the WSGI file. What files which we are concerned with, these are for development purposes and we are trying to learn the framework. We need not to worry about what happens in the server. First, let's try to understand how the framework works. So, the things which we're interested in are settings.py file and urls.py file. And let's see what is inside this hello world, the application which we created inside the Django. So here we see there are more files than it had in the my site folder. We have admin.py file, we have app.py file, we have models.py file, we have test.py file, we have views.py file. So all these files are different from what it had in the my site folder, which was already created when the project was made. Now, let's see what is inside all of these files to get a better understanding of how what is the meaning of these files. Let me open the terminal again, and here let me open the Visual Studio Code. So I have opened the Visual Studio Code inside the project folder, which was my site, and here we have this hello world in the my site folder. So let's look into the settings.py file. We will need uh, to change few things in the settings.py file in the upcoming videos. So let's just have a overlook over the settings.py file. The settings.py file is basically all the information which we want to give to the Django is saved here. Like this installed app is a list and there's some text is being given already by the Django. So when something we want to change the setting of the Django, we come to this file. We have another one is the urls.py file. Now let's try to understand the view and the URLs part. So inside this hello world, we have one view.py file. So for now, we'll be concerned with only views.py file inside our application folders. We need not to worry about model and app and admin part. Let's just try to learn it with the basics. So we'll only need to worry about this views.py file, which is currently empty. And it says create your views here. So there is one connection between urls.py file and a views.py file. The URLs, let's see what is inside this URL. So in this URL patterns, there's a it's a list and it takes a function which is like matching the URL to particular view. And how we can do that is first we need to copy this urls.py file and place it in our every application which we made inside the Django. So let me just copy it. So first thing which we need to do is we copy this urls.py file and place it inside our hello world application. So now we have urls.py file inside our hello world folder. So now let's try to understand what exactly is being done with the urls.py file. So uh, first we have this, we copied this urls.py file into our hello world app, and here it says some path and then there is some function given here. Now let's try to read it. It says include another URL configuration, and there are two methods. First, we need to replace this with different imports, which has includes and a path, and then we can use this path to give a location what to do when there is some for certain path where it should look for. So what exactly is this doing here? Suppose our URL configuration is something like https uh, slash slash 127.0.0.1, and then we have on port maybe 5000. Then this slash means here is when we have nothing, like this is our basic URL. When we go to this URL, then we have nothing after this first slash. So this URL matches this path. If we have like abc slash, then the path which it will match with is abc slash here. Like in the below example, we have admin. So this local host, or I can say this local website slash admin slash, is the URL which the below path will match. But now, when we have nothing, when we go to the home page like www.google.com, where we don't have anything after this .com slash nothing, then this is the path which says there is nothing. We say include, then we give the name of the application which we want to go to. In our case, we only have one application, it is Hello World. So we say include the Hello World URLs, which is nothing but saying if we have this path, go to the Hello World application. So in future, we may have a lot of application in our project. Like for example, if there are three people working on one project, then they might say we want a different URL for showing our progress. So they may do is that they can include their new path here and can say for student 1 slash is for me. Then the URL which it will the application which that person make will be reflected on http dot slash slash 127.0.0.1 colon 500, then student 1. This is the URL where his project will be displayed. or will be connected, or where there's a place where we can see that particular application. So for now, when there is nothing after our main URL, we want to go to our hello world application. So this is fine, we save it. Now we close this file so that we don't get confused with the URLs in our hello world. Now we need to change this file a bit. First, we need to include uh, this include from the URL. We can delete this admin part here. Now, this URL is the same, will the path matching will be same as what we did in the earlier. So here we are with the http dot slash slash 127.0.0.1 colon 5000 slash. There is nothing after the slash, then the path is this. If we wanted, like earlier, if we had in this urls.py, if we had something like hello world, then go to this hello world.urls.py file, then we would had a hello world here. Then the URL which would have came here would have been this. And now the path which we would have been trying to match is after this whole URL. So after this, if we had one, so it would have been trying to match this URL. After the base URL, it will try to match whatever the path we gave. So right now we have nothing, and even in the URLs, we don't give anything. So it will just try to open um, some view at this particular URL. We deleted the square bracket, so let's add it back. Now, because we don't have any admin here, so now we understand how this URL pattern matching is done using this path in the urls.py file. We go from main project to application. Then in one application, we might have different URLs like one page for contact us, one page for registration, one page for login, and one maybe the home page. So now inside this one application, how can we create such URLs? We will create such URLs in the application only. And then the question comes, how can we show a particular HTML page at a particular URL? That is the part of views.py file. Now we have the URL and we want to add a view to that particular URL. So from this folder, from dot import views, and inside that views folder, we have already imported one Django.http import responses. We can also add a Json response. So inside this, we'll write one function called hello, and this function will take one input, and which is usually called request. And for this is like whenever there is a request, like in our example we talked about in the that the waiter will take the request. So this is the backend which is taking the request. That's why in our functions we need to have that request. And in return, like the kitchen was giving the food, now we will have to respond or give a response in the HTTP response function which we imported from Django.http here. Now we can just return a HTTP response which says hello world. Now, this is like a response which we have created. Now we need to attach this response to particular URL. When exactly to show this as hello world? That is will be done in the urls.py file inside that application, which is hello world. So we have already imported views here. Now what we'll do is we will add the function here. So to call that function or to say that for this URL use this function, we'll say that views then the name of that function, and the name of the function was hello. We don't want to call that function, that's why we'll not use the parentheses after that. We'll just use the name of that function. Then to remember what exactly is in this path, what exactly we are doing, we have this one parameter called name. This is just to ease you while debugging that what page is causing the error. So we can say name is for hello world website. So this is the hello world function. Now let's try to run our server and see if we can get the response. So to run our server, we need to use manage.py file, then run server. We have got the URL. Let's try to open it back in our web browser. And as you can see, it says hello world. Let me zoom in a bit. So as you can see, it says hello world. So let's try to understand it once again. How do we exactly reach this place? So first, whatever URL which we have will go into the URLs of the main project folder, which is my site. And here we said nothing after this particular URL. Let's add this at hello world. So now what place this particular app will open is at in the basic URL slash the hello world. Now let's save this file and let's see if we can see the results. Now once we go to the basic URL, there is no page found because we did not created anything with nothing after this basic URL. That's why no page is there to show. Now let me go to the hello world, this basic URL slash hello world. We can see our hello world is being printed. This is because now our application is being hosted on the slash hello world. Now let's revert it back, save it. We usually have one application and then we create different views inside that application. Now let's try to create some URLs inside our hello world urls.py. Let's say for this particular URL we had the hello one. Let's try to create another path. I'll copy it and paste it, and this path can be at uh, maybe demo 1, and we can add a new function similarly like this, and we can say it demo 1, and and then the response we can say demo 1. Now we need to change this views.function which we're using, and this function name should be demo 1. In the names we can also add so that while debugging it will help. So this now the path is demo 1. So the after the basic URL, it will try to see demo 1 slash. As you can see, our we need not to restart our server. It automatically sees the change in our file once we save it and restart the server all by itself. So now if we go to our basic URL, we can see the hello world because we changed the uh, basic URL path and we did not restart the server. It all did by itself. Now let's try to go to demo1 URL. We can see demo1 is being printed here. So let's just once again see how the URLs was working. First, we got into the main settings dot main project urls.py file. There we gave the application one URL, whatever after slash. For now, we don't give anything after slash. Then we should include the hello world application. So we gave it in the urls.py file of the my site. Then we had we imported the views using from this folder import views so that we can call that function which we are creating in the views.py file. Now we can change the path of that particular URL. We can add more um, pages here inside that particular application. For example, if we have one shopping dashboard, we can add one home page, another can be the payment page here slash payment, another can be registration page slash registration, and one can be login, so slash login. And for every each of these pages, we'll have the views defined inside a function which will be in this with those functions will be inside the views.py file in that particular application only. And the way we responded back was using Django.http. Then we imported this HTTP response and a JSON response. As by the name, the HTTP response is nothing but to respond in the HTTP format. So it can take even the HTML tag. So I can even say it is h1 slash h1 and save it. And once I go back to our main page, I can see it's bold now and it's quite bigger. It's an h1. So it takes the HTML format and sends it back to the front end. So this is how the URLs and the views work. And this is how we connect the URLs and the views.